of the Dorton and Doetkott Debate Podcast. I am Lucas Dorton. I am joined by Nicholas Doetkott once again. Nick, how are we doing today?
Doing all right. Doing all right.
Good. As you can tell, we did not put out an episode last week. We had some technical difficulties with some storage issues and uploading issues.
Whose fault is that?
It's certainly not mine. Definitely not mine. I don't know. I don't know how that happened, but yeah, pretty much that was the issues there. So we did not get an episode out. So we're trying it again this week to see how this goes. Hopefully it goes well. I think it will. But anyways, so this episode, as you can see by the title, is an NFL predictions episode. So we're going to be going team by team, division by division, predicting their record. Maybe talk about them a little bit if we feel like we need to, and then we will go into the playoffs and make our playoff predictions, playoff winners, and then at the end of the show, we will have our award winners. So we have a lot of stuff going on in this episode, but it's a fun one. Predictions are always a fun time, regardless of how long it is. So it's always a good time. So, are you ready to get the ball rolling?
Ready to go.
All right, cool. So we're gonna start in the AFC East. We're gonna start my division.
The hardest
Um,
division in football.
it's probably fairly accurate there. Um, it's the worst division, but it's also the most intriguing because
Most competitive.
I feel any team really has a chance to finish 1-4. I mean, regardless of how it plays out. Now, obviously, we had to make predictions, so we didn't do every team first, every team second, third, fourth. But that made it a little more difficult because I feel any team could win just about the games, most of the games they play or lose.
I think this is by far the hardest division to pick.
Yeah.
You got I think a lot of divisions, there's at least some obvious ones. Like, it's not for sure, but there's a good chance Detroit gets last in the North. There's a good chance, there's a very good chance Jacksonville gets last in the South. There's a very good chance Kansas City wins the West. But it's like this one. It's like I don't know. I could see my 1, 2, 3, 4 finishing 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, I could. Very easily. So you want to start us off? Who do you have winning the AFC East?
I have New England at 8-8. Now, two things honestly probably pop out to you. It's like, one thing I guess. The 8-8. Yeah, that ain't very good for divisional winner, but I'm not very high in any of these teams. I actually pretty much had New England at 7-9, but honestly had to just pick somebody to win, so I gave them the extra win. Now, when you were going over earlier before this, you were going over New England's offseason and whatnot, and you're making me feel a little doubtful about this pick. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think Newton's great, but I think he'll be decent. You still got the best coach to ever do it. You still got the defensive player of the year in the McCourties. You got Edelman. I mean, they still should be decent. And it might come down to this division might come down to coaching. And at the end of the day, they're the best to ever do it. So I'm still leaning on New England, but I don't think they're going to be that great because, I mean, I'm the biggest Tom Brady fan you'll ever meet, and they didn't even win a playoff game. And after week 8, they were not very good last year, even with Tom Brady. So I don't, once that defense came back to earth, they were not a very good team, and they didn't really do anything to help them out. So I'm not super high on them, but if I had to pick someone, I'm going with them.
I have Buffalo winning the division. I have them going 9-7. I think that's a team that it's so tough because I could see them going 9-7, but I could also see them going like 5-11 too. I don't think they will. I think they're obviously made the playoffs last year. Should have beat Houston. They should not have lost that game in the playoffs, but they did. They choked it.
Yeah, weren't they up by like double digits at halftime?
Yeah, that was not a close game. But Buffalo did lose that game. I think they're going to be determined to get back to the playoffs. I think now, especially with the expanded playoffs, now so 7 teams making it. I just think it really opens it up for Buffalo. Now, granted, I have them winning the division, so they would make it regardless because each division winner makes it for that. I just think Buffalo is really going to have a lot to prove this year. I think it's a wide open division, and I think on paper, probably Miami might have the better team on paper, but there's a lot of question marks with Miami as far as rookies go, guys they brought in the offseason from free agency. I think they're a year or two out yet from being really good. Buffalo, though, I think is probably going to be the best team in this division at 9-7.
So who do you have 2, 3, 4?
So I have Miami second, finishing 7-9, and then I have New England finishing 4-12, and the Jets finishing 3-13. I don't the Patriots just you kind of mentioned it what I was talking about before. They had a horrendous offseason. They lost guys. Now obviously, yeah, they brought in Cam Newton. Isn't Tom Brady, but he's serviceable. But offensive threats, not a whole lot to throw to. Edelman's definitely on the decline of his career. And the offensive side of the ball worries me a lot. I think the defense might be okay. Now they've had a number of guys opt out too on the Patriots team.
But the secondary will be very, very good.
The secondary is going to be good, and I don't have much doubt behind that. But I think besides that, it's going to be a tough season for the Patriots, and I think we're really going to see if these New England fans still stick with them or not.
Yeah. I don't know. New England fans last year, they lost like their second or third game in a row, and the offense was really struggling, and they already started booing them. I'm like, really? You literally haven't been bad in 2 decades. You've won like 6 Super Bowls since 2000. Quit it. Just terrible fans. Terrible. Anyway, I have Miami and New York Jets going 7-9. I have Buffalo going 6-10. So I have Buffalo going from first to last. I didn't anticipate that. I don't think Buffalo's that bad, but like just with the schedule they got, and I mean 6-10 seems unlikely. I mean they did just go 10-6, and they didn't really get worse. I don't know. I don't think this division's good, but I think they're all about even. So I think the Jets and Dolphins are enough improved from last year where they're going to be able to beat Buffalo at least once. And then Buffalo's non-conference, I don't see them winning many games. So I have them 6-10. And I do think the Jets are going to be a little better than most think. I do think Sam Darnold could potentially still become a pretty good quarterback. And then Miami, I think, has a lot of upside. But without Tua starting, at least not right away, I'm not super confident in them, although I do love me some Fitz magic.
Oh, yeah.
But, so yeah, I don't expect a lot from any of these teams, but I also don't see any of them going like 3-13, 4-12, 5-11, anything like that.
For me, the Jets, I do think Sam Darnold can play well. The thing that kind of is making me put them at 3-13 is the head coach, Adam Gase. Number one, and I know Colin Cowherd talks about it a lot, but it's so true, is that he doesn't get along with any of the stars. Doesn't get along with any stars. He's always beefing with one of them. I mean, Le'Veon Bell was talking about getting traded before the season even started last year. I mean, he just didn't get along with him. I think they've improved a little bit in the draft. Let me see if I can find who they got here real quick in the draft. So they got their first round pick was Becton, and then they got a wide receiver, Mims, in the second round. And then they got another running back, Pirine, in the fourth. So they kind of went all around the spectrum as far as the draft went. So I'm interested to see how Sam Darnold does this year. I don't think I'm going to call it a make or break year for him because, I mean, if we're being honest, he's never really had the big guy, the big names around him to play well. Obviously, I know he missed some time last year with mono, missed like about a month or so with that. But,
yeah, that's right.
So, 3-13. I mean, could I see them being better? Maybe. I don't think they're going to be close to 500 though. I really don't. find out. AFC West. I think I can probably speak for both of us in saying that the Kansas City Chiefs are probably winning that division unless you have someone else.
Yes, that
Yep.
is correct.
What do you have their record at?
I think Kansas City is the best team in football. And I have them getting the best record in football at 14-2. As long as Mahomes plays every game, or all but maybe one or two, I don't see this team losing many games. I think they should be favored in every game they play,
Yeah.
including Baltimore. I don't even care if it's in Baltimore, especially this year with the no fans or few fans or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm all in on Kansas City, and I have them going 14-2, winning the division.
I also have Kansas City going 14-2. Obviously, they're coming off of a Super Bowl victory. A lot of times, you see teams that they play really well one season, and then, well, they kind of drop off at LA Rams, that type of team there.
Falcons.
But the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously, they were one offsides lined up away from going to a Super Bowl in Mahomes' rookie year. Or sorry, I guess technically his second year, but really it was his first year because he only played one game the year before.
First year starting.
Yeah, and then obviously made it to the Super Bowl and won last season. They only got better too. They didn't lose anyone. They got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which I like Damian Williams. Like I said, I thought he should have been Super Bowl MVP. He was not, but that's whatever.
He's opted out, by the way.
And he's not playing, which Edwards-Helaire comes in. A lot of people think he's going to be really, really good.
Yeah.
First round pick, obviously, I'm thinking Kansas City will think he's going to be really, really good too. It'll be interesting to see how he does. But I don't see the Chiefs not winning this division. I don't see it happening.
No.
Unless, their starters get hurt and people start opting out. That's probably the only way, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. I think there's only one other good team in this division, and that's Denver. I'm not huge on Denver yet because I'm not sure about that defense, especially after losing Chris Harris Jr. But I'm actually very high on that offense. Now, a couple things. I think the Melvin Gordon signing was terrible. For one, I don't think Melvin Gordon's very good. I just don't. And they already had Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman. Now you have 3 running backs, which is great. But Philip Lindsay is one of the top 10 running backs in football. At least top 15, no doubt. But they use him like he's Duke Johnson Jr. Like, come on, give the guy the ball. He should be touching the ball all the time, and he won't be. And I don't like that. But regardless, they still have him. I think Cortland Sutton's a very, very good wide receiver.
Very good.
They got the rookie. Which one did they get?
Jerry Jeudy. Yep.
They got Jeudy now. And I think Drew Lock's going to be very good. And, he's coming into his second year. We've seen all sorts of quarterbacks, right? Second year, I believe, for Lock, right?
Yep, second year.
We've seen all sorts of people, all sorts of quarterbacks recently do very well in their second year, or at least second year, playing. And I expect big things from that offense, and I have them going 10-6. The Chargers going 6-10. They got talent all over the place, but Derwin James is already banged up. They're losing Phillip Rivers, who honestly, I don't think Phillip Rivers is any good anymore. So I don't know if that's really even a loss. But I don't think Tyrod Taylor's going to be that great, and I don't think losing Gordon's much of a hit either, but I just don't see that team being competitive enough. And then the Raiders, honestly, I just don't think there's much talent on that team, and I don't think Derek Carr is very good. So I have them going 5-11.
I'll just go through who I have at the standings. I'll talk about it. So I have Denver going 8-8, Chargers going 5-11, and Raiders going 3-13. Denver, I think, is absolutely the second best team in the division. But I kind of am on your side as far as I think they're just a year out. I think next season, for me at least, I think they make the playoffs. Now, a lot of that is going to ride on how Drew Lock plays. If Drew Lock plays like John Elway and everyone in Denver thinks he's going to play, I think he'll be decent. Then they're probably a playoff team next season. Um, maybe if things go their way, potentially a wild card team this year. I don't have them making the playoffs, but it's possible. But I think they have a really good young offensive team. Obviously, Drew Lock, like you mentioned, Jerry Judy, Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant at tight end is a really good young tight end.
Yeah.
And then, the duo of Gordon and Lindsey. The secondary, though, now Von Miller is obviously there, but you got to remember Bradley Chubb missed a lot of time with a torn ACL. He's going to be back, and he was an absolute monster. And then you got AJ Bouye, who they got in the offseason. And then you also have Jarrell Casey, who they picked up from the Titans.
D-line's got a lot.
So the D-line is really solid. And I think Justin Simmons, too, in the secondary is also a pretty solid player as well, too.
Yeah.
So,
yes, I forgot about
so they've got a nice mix of veterans and young guys on that team. So if things go well, they could potentially make the playoffs this year. I don't think they will. Like I said, I think they're a year out.
I think this team has a very, very bright future, though.
Absolutely.
I think they killed it. As long as Drew Lock pans out.
They killed it in this draft. I think they were one of the best teams that drafted, in my opinion. I think they did a great job. Yeah, the Chargers, I had them going 5-11. From everything that we know, Tyrod Taylor is going to be the starting quarterback for the whole season. So we'll have to see if they stay true to that or if they give Herbert a shot at some point. But I think Taylor's going to be the starting guy there. And then the Raiders, they have a lot of. I think they're a very young team. They have a lot of guys that I think in a few years, I think the Raiders might be a really good team.
Right now, Josh Jacobs.
Me too, and I think they did a pretty decent job in the draft as well. I don't think this year though is their year. I think they go 3-13. I think Derek Carr. I don't mind Derek Carr. It kind of depends on the year for me. I don't mind him too much, but I think Derek Carr's gone after the season, and they probably are trying to get a quarterback in this upcoming draft. Is probably my guess. So I have the Raiders going 3-13. So now you have the AFC South. I have the Titans winning that division, going 13-3.
13-3, huh?
Yep.
I'm pretty high on Tennessee, but I'm not quite 13-3 high. I do think this team's very good. Not to spoil anything, but I actually have them in the AFC Championship game. But I do only have them going 11-5 in the regular season. However, that is good enough to win the division.
Yeah, the Titans are a really solid team. Kind of built well. I could see them potential. Now, I don't think they will. I think the Titans are for sure going to make the playoffs. 13-3 maybe was a little optimistic. But at the end of the day, that's what I went through, and that's how I totaled them up. So I'm sticking with 13-3. I think probably 11-5 is probably a little more realistic for them, but I do have them going 13-3. Derrick Henry, I think, is going to be an absolute monster. I think Tannehill is going to play well for them again. They've got again, kind of a nice mix of younger guys, veterans. So I think they're going to be right back there again. I don't know if they'll get back to the AFC Championship game. I guess we'll find out when we get to my predictions or not for the playoffs. But I think they're a really solid team.
Yeah, I'm a big Derrick Henry guy. I really wasn't up until last year. I mean, I don't know how you can't be now. The guy totally proved me wrong. I love me some Ryan Tannehill, and I think A.J. Brown is going to have a very good year.
Yeah.
Now, they don't necessarily have that many weapons receiver-wise after Brown, but, as long as the run game with Henry is solid, they don't necessarily need to. I mean, they won 2 playoff games with Tannehill throwing, 100 yards.
Yeah, something like that.
And that defense, I can barely name you a player on that Tennessee defense, but they're year in, year out pretty good. So I'm very, very much a believer in Tennessee. I do think Houston's still going to be good. They lost D-Hop, but Deshaun Watson's a top 5 quarterback in the league. They added Brandon Cooks, who gets 1,000 yards in a different offense every single year. Will Fuller, he's probably not going to stay healthy, but when he is, he's very good, at least when he's got Watson. David Johnson, I think, has a chance to potentially be pretty good. But they got two. They got David Johnson and Duke Johnson, so they got plenty of weapons. J.J. Watt, like Fuller, is probably gonna get injured, but when he's there, he's good. They got playmakers there, and year in and year out, they just seem to do enough to make the playoffs. So I see them going 10-6 and getting wild card. Indianapolis, we'll get them because I know you are kind of high on Indianapolis. I'm not.
Yeah.
I think Philip Rivers is washed. Um, whoops, sorry. I think Philip Rivers is washed, and I don't see the Colts doing much. I really don't. I have them going 5-11, and then Jacksonville. Well, they're tanking, and I have them winning two games though. I think they'll just find two wins somewhere.
Like I mentioned, the Titans going first. I'm fairly high on the Colts. I think they're a dark horse team this season. I think Philip Rivers is certainly not Philip Rivers that he was in his prime with the Chargers, but these last couple of years has had a horrendous offensive line with the Chargers. Absolutely horrendous. Now, granted, he has not played well, but I think a huge part of that is because of the horrendous offensive line. You go to Indianapolis, now you have arguably the best offensive line in the league.
Yeah.
And you have he doesn't have to throw the ball all the time now because he's got a nice running back duo and Marlon Mack and Jonathan Taylor, who they drafted out of Wisconsin. I think T.Y. Hilton had an off season last year, was hurt a little bit. I think he's going to rebound and play well this year. I think the Colts are a sleeper team, so I have them going 10-6 and making the playoffs. I'm really excited to see how the Colts play this year. I think they're going to be a good team. I have the Texans going 8-8. I just think the loss of DeAndre Hopkins is going to hurt a lot. I think a lot more than probably a lot of people think it might. I don't see them getting over the hump. I get it. They got Brandon Cooks. He's an extremely reliable wide receiver. He's going to get you yards, but at the end of the day, Brandon Cooks is not DeAndre Hopkins. And Will Fuller only plays about 5-6 games a year before he gets hurt and is gone for the rest of it.
Right.
Now, and I know they've had some struggles on the offensive line too. I know they have not. Watson's running around a lot. Granted, he can do it and usually gets out of it. If everything goes right, if Cooks has another 1,000+ yard season, Fuller plays the whole year, and the offensive line is decent enough to where David Johnson, I'm not saying gets back to the year where everyone was picking him #1 overall, but back to a serviceable guy in the backfield, then maybe I could see them sneak into the playoffs. I don't think any one of those three things are going to happen, and I have them going 8-8. Now, Jacksonville Jaguars fans, if you're listening to this, you probably want to skip past this point because you're not going to be very happy with me. I have the Jags going 0-16. I don't think they're going to win a single game. Now, having said that, it is very hard to go 0-16. You have to be extremely bad to do that.
Almost gets unlucky too.
I would be willing to bet that they'll find a way, like you mentioned, to steal a win or two. But I am not going to be surprised at all if this team does not win a single game. They are not good. DJ Chark is a solid young wide receiver. Gardner Minshew has had flashes in the pan of being good, but that team is not a good team. They've got pretty much 3 running backs, and you don't know which one of them is going to be the starting one. And besides that, I mean, they did a little bit in this offseason and in the draft. They got C.J. Henderson. I think they got Caleb Von Chasen from LSU too. But I think this is just a really young team, but the roster is not very good. So I have them going 0-16. I would be willing to bet they will sneak out a win or two. But if we're making predictions, my prediction is that they're going to absolutely suck this year.
I do think they'll get the #1 overall pick.
I think they will too. Which
is kind of interesting because I think Trevor Lawrence is kind of the consensus, no doubt, number one pick this year, but I don't think they would take quarterback. I think they're gonna go with Minshew.
I think if Minshew plays well this year, now how do you say, oh, how is Minshew going to play well if they go 0-16? Well, you have some stars typically on bad teams. If
So
Minshew does not play well at all this season, I mean, I don't know. I think they probably move on. Not that it's so much his fault. I don't think they expected him to play solid like he did last season. If he does, then yeah, I don't think they draft quarterback. It'll be interesting.
we'll see. I think they're
Um,
definitely the worst team in the league, though.
and it ain't, I really don't think it's close either. AFC North now. This one's a tough division. This one is a really tough division because Big Ben's going to be back and healthy. The Browns got a new head coach. The Ravens obviously are pretty solid. So who do you have? Where do you have them finishing in the place for the AFC North?
Colin Coward has the Ravens at 16-0, and my buddy Mitchell has them at 15-1. I think they're crazy. However, because I think they're going to regress hard, including Lamar Jackson in fantasy. He's going to regress a lot. But looking at their schedule, it's very easy. And it's a first place schedule. So I still have them going 13-3 because they're going to be good. I think they are the best team in the league, or in their division, sorry. So I have them going 13-3 and winning it. However, I would not be shocked if Pittsburgh won it. Pittsburgh won, I believe, 7-9 or 8-8 last year with Duck Hodges and
Mason Rudolph.
And I mean, they should. I mean, that team with that quarterback, you shouldn't do that well, but they did because that defense is good, and they got playmakers on offense. And Juju had a very disappointing year, but with Big Ben Roethlisberger back, I think Juju should have a good year. They got other young wide receivers. They got James Conner. Like I mentioned, they still have a very solid defense. Deontay Johnson, that's who I meant to mention. Deontay Johnson at wide receiver. I think he could have a very good year. I think Pittsburgh's going to be a really good squad. I think they definitely beat Baltimore once. But I still think they have a few holes, so they'll probably go 10-6. I think Cleveland does go above 500. I have them going 9-7. And Cincinnati, I think, has potential. I really like me some Joe Mixon. I hope AJ Green is good this year, but we'll see. And they still don't have much defensively or on the offensive line, but I think they'll squeeze in 4 wins.
I also have the Ravens winning the division. I think that's kind of a no-doubter going 12-4. They are a really solid team. Obviously, have a lot of returners, and they also drafted J.K. Dobbins, who's going to be splitting time with Mark Ingram at running back, and I think that'll be huge. I'm really high on J.K. Dobbins. I think he can be a solid player this season. Pittsburgh is going to go 9-7. Having Big Ben back is going to be great. And I think Juju struggled mightily last year, but I think a big reason was that because, he had Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph thrown to him for pretty much the entirety of the season. Yeah. So it's kind of hard to have a successful season when you got those guys thrown to you. Mm-hmm. But their defense is arguably probably the best defense in the league. They are set at all 3 facets of the game.
It's ranked number 1 fantasy-wise.
Yeah. Extremely solid defense. They have great players all around. I think the defense is going to be kind of what carries them this season. I'm interested to see how James Conner plays. If he stays healthy, I think James Conner can play well. If he does not, they're going to probably have to try and find something as far as running back goes because he has been struggling and he has been hurt. I have the Browns going 8-8. I think that team should be good enough to win more games, but they have virtually the same roster that they did last season, and they did not make the playoffs. So maybe a new head coach will change things. Maybe it'll help Baker out. Now, 8-8 as far as my playoff goes, that would be enough to make the playoffs for me for my predictions. And then the Bengals, I have them going 4-12. I think Joe Burrow is a good quarterback, but he ain't at LSU anymore. He is on a bad Cincinnati roster who does not have good offensive line. If AJ Green is healthy, great. I don't know if he will be. Tyler Boyd, same thing. I think it's interesting to see how the Bengals will do this season, but I think they're going to go 4-12.
Yeah, I mean they got good skill players, but they really don't have anything else. It's insane.
So now we can move on to the NFC. We will start in the NFC East, very top-heavy division. I have the Eagles finishing 12-4. I have Dallas going 11-5. I have the Giants going 4-12, and the Redskins going 4-12. The Eagles are a team that I think they could potentially, and they made the playoffs last year with not a very good roster. They had a lot of injuries on that team. Now, some guys will be coming back this season, hopefully healthy. I think if Carson Wentz is healthy the entire season, obviously we saw what Carson Wentz did with that awful wide receiving core last year. Like I mentioned, with all the injuries, I think they could be a decent team. The Eagles are a question mark team for me because I really feel they could be 12-4 like I have them, but I could also see them absolutely sucking and missing the playoffs. So they're a hard team for me to predict, but I'm being positive and I'm saying 12-4.
I gotta be honest. I don't see where you get the 12 wins. Now, granted, I haven't been high on Philly for a long time. Even the year they won the Super Bowl, I didn't think they were any good, and then they won it, so they proved me wrong. So maybe I'm a little bitter. But I mean, they play the Rams, the Niners, the Steelers, the Ravens, the Cowboys twice, the Seahawks, the Packers, the Saints, and the Cardinals. I just don't see 12 wins in there.
Yeah, I think they're definitely, I think they will split. Let me see, what am I trying to find here? I think they definitely lose to Seattle. I don't think they win that game. I think they lose to Baltimore, lose to San Francisco. I think they split against Washington. I think Washington sneaks one out against them. But I think they sweep the Giants. The Giants, I don't think, are a good team.
No.
I think Dallas, I have them sweeping them. I think they'll probably split. I don't think they'll lose both of them. I think they'll win at least one. But I have them winning both of them. I think it's interesting, but I have the Eagles going 12-4. What do you have?
I have the Eagles going 9-7. I mean, Wentz is good when he's healthy, and year after year they keep making the playoffs, even when I don't know how they do, and it seems like they should.
Yeah.
So I'll at least give them the 9-7. But I do think Dallas is the most talented team in the division. I think Prescott's the best quarterback in the division. I do. I think Elliott's the best running back in the division. I think it's debatable with him and Barkley. I think Cooper's the best wide receiver in the division. Some reason their defense let them down last year, whereas they were really good 2 years ago, and that was the difference. So I do think the Cowboys are going to win that division and go 11-5. Like I said, I'll give the Eagles 9-7. I mean, I think I probably other than that they were incredibly hurt last year and they still managed to make the playoffs. So I mean, they should be able to go 9-7, but I just don't think that team's very good. But year after year they proved me wrong. I just don't see how that team could possibly win more than 10 games. I think the Giants and Redskins both suck. I think the Redskins are the second or third worst team in football. I have them going, the Washington football team.
Yeah, come on, Nick.
I have them going 3-13, and I have the Giants going 4-12. Although I do think Daniel Jones is actually pretty decent. And if you're talking fantasy, if you want a sleeper, Daniel Jones.
Well, there you go, folks. You got a fantasy sleeper too in the podcast. Who knew you were going to get that? I think Dallas. It's definitely between Dallas and the Eagles who wins that division. Giants and Redskins aren't going to be competing. The only reason why I did not have Dallas winning the division is the question marks on defense. They obviously lost Byron Jones, and that is a huge loss, one of the better cornerbacks in the game. I think that if they have defensive players that step up and play well, then I could see Dallas winning the division. Like I said, I don't think they will. They have a very good offense, probably one of, if not the best offense in the league. So they have no excuse to not play well. because they've got all the pieces on the board. They just got to put it together now.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to see how that goes. My boy Dwayne Haskins, though, I had the Redskins going 4-12, but Haskins is going to play really well.
The who?
Oh,
I made the same
the
mistake.
Washington football team.
I'm sure we'll both do that about 20 times this year.
Yeah, I think it's probably heck. I still do that with the Chargers. I still call them the San Diego Chargers and
The
Oakland
San
Raiders.
Diego Superchargers. Can't do that anymore.
That's gorgeous. So now we got the NFC West. I think this has potential to be the best division in football.
I think it is.
Um,
Definitely.
I have the Seahawks winning the division at 13-3. I have the
Glad to
49ers.
hear that.
I have the 49ers behind them. I think they'll take a step back, but I don't think they'll take a big enough step that they're going to miss the playoffs. I have them going 12-4. I have the Rams going 8-8. The Rams are a team that just I don't know what to make of them. I think and I think it goes down to Jared Goff. Like we mentioned on the podcast during the season last year, Jared Goff is a very boom or bust quarterback. He's either going to go out there, throw for 400 plus yards and 4 touchdowns, or he's going to throw for 150 yards, a touchdown, and 3 picks.
Right.
So if we get Jared Goff then I could see the Rams making a push for the playoffs. But I think it's going to be a lot of up and down for Jared Goff this season, and I think the downs are going to be a little more than the ups, and I think they're going to miss the playoffs. The Cardinals, I have them going 6-10. I think again they're one of those teams that for me they're still a year or two out. I think they could be around 500 this year. I have them going 6-10, but I'm not sure they're going to get blown out. I think it'll be a lot of close games for the Cardinals that they're just not going to be able to pull out in the end. Obviously, adding DeAndre Hopkins is absolutely ginormous. I mean, that was great to pair along with Larry Fitzgerald. I think they did a solid job in the draft, getting offensive line help, defense help. So like I said, 6-10. I think they miss the playoffs this year, but potentially next season. If not, at the very latest, the season after that, I think the Cardinals are for sure a playoff team. Though.
Yeah. All right, so I had a lot to talk about this division because I'm very intrigued by this division. I think it was the best division in the league last year. I think it's going to be the best division in the league this year. And I think the worst division in the league is the AFC East. Well, the NFC West plays the AFC East this year. I would not be surprised. I mean, it's probably not going to happen. But I would not be surprised if the NFC West went 16-0 versus the AFC East this year. I think it would be 16-0. I think every single team in the NFC West is better than every team in the AFC East. I think Seattle's clearly better than them. San Fran's good, LA's good, and I'm really high in Arizona. So I have every team in this division going 500 better, which is very unlikely. But that's what I have. I have Seattle is probably my second highest. I'm probably higher on Seattle than anybody but one team in the NFC. I'm a huge Russell Wilson fan. I think he's the best quarterback in football besides Patrick Mahomes. I know if Alex Reckenbach's watching this, he's probably thinking they're going to regress, which I get it, but because they won a bunch of close games last year. But it's because Russell Wilson, the guy gets the job done. I thought they'd have a little better offseason than they did because they had a lot of salary cap, but they really didn't. They don't have Clowney anymore. But, I mean, it's not like they lost anybody huge besides that. Let me go look at who they drafted really quick. I don't remember off the top of my head.
They got Jordan Brooks, a linebacker with a first-round pick. They got a linebacker, Darrell Taylor, in the second round, a guard, tight end, running back, lineman, receiver.
Seattle was. I actually think their offseason was a little disappointing. They had a pick in each round. They had a lot of salary cap, and they didn't really make any big moves. But they got the 2 linebackers, so the linebackers should be improved. They have a decent secondary. So, it's kind of surprising that they do, but they really do. They can't rush the pass. They cannot rush the passer though. That's their huge problem, and that's why the Jadeveon Clowney loss is it's going to be a fairly significant loss. Like 30 seconds ago, I kind of said the opposite, but no, Jadeveon Clowney is going to be a big loss. Um, but that offense is very hard to stop because Wilson's one of the best passers in the league. He can also run, and that team was the best rushing team in football darn near last year, besides the Ravens. But if you're talking running back specifically, Seattle was the best team in football rushing, and I'm a big Chris Carson fan. So I think Seattle's going 12-4. I think the Rams get second place. I
Okay.
think the Niners are going to Jack and Jill off a hill. They're going to regress. I mean, again, maybe I'm kind of bitter because I didn't think they were good. I did not think they were good last year, even when they were 8-2 or whatever they were, and then they made the Super Bowl. So clearly they were good. But Garoppolo's not that great, and if you figure this team out, I think there's definitely weaknesses you can exploit. Um, they didn't necessarily get that much better. They had 2 first-round picks. The one was Kinlaw, which I like that pick. Um, but like their D line was already solid. They got Nick Bosa. They got all sorts of guys. So it didn't really. I like the pick in Kinlaw because I think he's going to be a solid player, but I think they could have used it elsewhere. And then they got a wide receiver in Brandon Ayuk, which I do like that pick. But then they didn't have a second rounder, a third rounder, or a fourth rounder.
Mm.
So injuries and whatnot this year, I don't know if they're really going to have the depth. And I just think this team's going to regress. I just really do. So I have them going 9-7, and I also have the Rams going 9-7. But I have the Rams getting second place with the tiebreaker over them. I think the Rams' offense is going to be revitalized this year. I know they lost Gurley, but I just think there's too much. I do like Goff, like you said. He's kind of. Are you going to get Jared Goff A? Are you going to get Jared Goff D plus? What are you going to get?
Mm-hmm.
But I do think the guy's good, and they lost Brandon Cooks and Gurley, which is worrisome, but they still got Kupp and Woods, which is probably the second or third wide receiver duo in football. They got young running backs, but with that offense, the way it works, I don't think you necessarily need stud running backs. You just need guys healthy that are going to catch passes and move the ball. I do think that offense is going to be really good. I think there's a few weaknesses on the defense though, so I think 9-7 is about where they're going to finish. And Arizona is about my favorite team. Is one of my favorite teams in football right now. I have them going 8-8, but I think in a year or two they're going to be very good. I would not be surprised if 3 years from now the Arizona Cardinals win the Super Bowl. I am very high on Kyler Murray, very high. They just got D Hop. I like Christian Kirk. Fitzgerald, who knows? That guy's going to be balling when he's like 70.
Yeah.
And then they got Isaiah Simmons, who Caleb Sipe. If you
Caleb's
watch their
boy.
draft, if you watch their draft recap and video, I mean he's huge on it on Isaiah Simmons. They got Buda Baker, who's darn near, the player that I think most people think Isaiah Simmons is going to be. Those guys can play anywhere on the field, and if you have both of them, I mean, and then Chandler Jones, I think is best DN in football. So I really like this team. I think they're 1 year out though, but I do think they're going to go 8-8. So I think this division is going to be very good, very competitive, and I would not want to play them.
Um, yeah, like I said, I mean, I think the Cardinals are a tough team. I think they're going to be a spoiler for a lot of teams that are trying to make the playoffs this season for sure. But like you said, I still think they're another year or two out, at the very most 2 years. I think they're certainly a playoff team, 100% in 2 years, if not next year. I think they're right around the corner there. Um, so now we can move on to the NFC South. I have the Saints winning that division. I have them going 13-3. I think this is probably their last shot with Drew Brees.
He did say
Before
this is last season, didn't he?
I can't remember. I've seen reports either way. I
I
think.
believe he said this is his last season, which obviously, yeah, he can go off of that word, but I'm pretty sure he said it's his last.
So I have the Saints winning that division. I still think they're one of the better teams in football. Their offense is really solid. I know Kamara struggled last year. He was not himself. But Michael Thomas, obviously, a beast too. I have the Saints winning that division. I have Tampa finishing 11-5 in second place in that division. I know I was not as high on them in the past, but I thinking about it a little more. They have a solid team. I think they have guys. It's going to come down to how is Fournette going to play, how is Gronk going to play, and will the Tampa Bay defense play as well as they did at the end of the season last year. I think if those three things can happen, then I think they're an 11-5 team. If not, I could see them maybe even missing the playoffs. But I don't think that's gonna. I don't think that's gonna happen. Um, I don't think Gronk is gonna be New England Patriots Rob Gronkowski.
He wasn't
But
his last 2 years in New England.
But I do think Tom Brady, it's going to be nice to have the familiarity there. And then obviously Evans and Godwin. I mean, everyone's talked about it. Probably one of the best wide receiver duos in the league.
The best.
So it'll be interesting to see how they do. But I think I have them going 11-5. And then I have my Carolina Panthers going 8-8, like I mentioned before. I think they are a team that did pretty well in the offseason. Obviously, they brought in Teddy Bridgewater. I think we all saw when he starts, he's a solid player. And then they did, got Robbie Anderson as well too. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey needs an introduction, and they got DJ Moore as well.
That's your big offseason move, huh, Robbie Anderson?
Robbie Anderson and Teddy Bridgewater, man. I think it's going to be a solid team, 8-8. And I'm shaving Nick Duckett's head at the end of the season.
Oh, you see this? This nice luscious fro here?
It's going to be gone.
Because it's not going to be shaved off.
I have to kiss it goodbye.
Yeah, okay.
Then the Atlanta Falcons finishing 7-9. I think they're a team that really has underachieved the last few years, especially last season. I still don't think they're going to make the playoffs, and I think if they don't make the playoffs within the next couple of years, I think they just got to blow things up and start over because they just, yeah.
So you think this is going to be a pretty solid division, 7-9 at last place?
I think so.
Yeah, I do as well. I think if you're talking just the best two teams in each division, I think this is the best division with Tampa and New Orleans. I do think Tampa wins the division. Obviously, there's a little bias here. I'm about the biggest Brady fan there is. But I truly think, we were watching Colin Cowherd earlier, and Peter King was on. He said the Buccaneers turned it over like 41 times last year. The last team to turn it over that many times is the 0-16 Browns. And this team still ended up going 7-9. Now we got Tom Brady. Is Tom Brady going to be able to air it out, throw 5,000 yards like Winston? Probably not. But he's not going to throw a cajillion interceptions. And right. Brady can still throw it down the field. People think he can't. He can still throw it down the field. And he's the smartest quarterback to ever play. They're going to improve with him. And then this defense is highly suspect in the secondary. But over the last 5 weeks, this defense was one of the best in football. Over the 16 game season last year, they were one of the best rush defenses in football. They had the league leading pass rusher. And again, they didn't really, they didn't get any studs in the secondary. But they drafted Antoine Winfield Jr. I think he's going to be very good. I think you do as well. You wanted the Dolphins to get him.
Yep.
I think they won the draft. Their two biggest needs are secondary and offensive line. They got Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa, who I thought was the best O-lineman in the draft. And then they got Antoine Winfield Jr. They also got Keyshawn Vaughn for running back. They got Tyler Johnson, my boy, for wide receiver depth. This team's crazy loaded depth-wise. They got Gronk, Brate, and Howard. They got plenty of wide receivers. They got plenty of running backs. They might not have any even B- running backs, but they have plenty of them. And, Brady for the last decade hasn't really had any stud running backs. He just had a bunch of them. So if he tries to adopt somewhat the same system, I think this offense is going to be possibly the best in football, and I'm all in on Tampa. I got them going 13-3. New Orleans is obviously still very good. That offense is very, very good too. I think Kamara is not quite as good as I once thought he was. I think the fact that last year was the first year he didn't have Ingram and he really struggled isn't necessarily a fluke. I think it might mean maybe he needs that other guy with him. And he has Murray, but I don't know. I don't think Kamara is quite as good as I once thought he was, but he still is good. They have the best receiver in the league probably in Michael Thomas. And yeah, it's now or never. So they got a lot to play for this year, but I do think Tampa squeaks it out and I think they beat New Orleans by a game because New Orleans goes 12-4.
Yeah.
Atlanta is going to have the best fantasy offense in football probably because they're going to be down, or they're going to have to score 40 in every game because the defense is so bad. And but that offense is pretty good. They got enough star power to go 7-9. And Carolina is terrible. I don't care what you say. They're going. I'll give them 4 wins. I think there's a good chance they go 3-13, but I will
Mm.
give them 4 wins.
All right. Well, my Panthers, my boys, are going to prove you wrong at the end of the season. So
Sure.
better take a lot of pictures with that fro because you're not going to be seeing it for quite some time.
In your dreams.
And then NFC North, final division here. I think, again, a very top-heavy division with the Packers and Vikings for sure are going to be finishing 1 and 2. The question is what order. I actually have the Packers winning the division at 11-5. I have the Vikings right behind them at 10-6. I have the Bears at 5-11. The Lions at 2-14. Now let me just quick talk about the Lions really quick. I
Don't.
think that they are going to be competitive in probably 7, 8 of their games. But I don't think they're going to be able to pull it off in the end. Having Stafford back this season is going to help a lot.
Yeah.
But I just think that with how bad that offensive line is, the defense has a ton of questions. They have good offensive players. I'm a big Matthew Stafford guy. I think Marvin Jones is solid. I think Galladay is solid. And then I think Kerryon Johnson and DeAndre Swift both can be really solid. But how will that offensive line hold up? And I don't think it's going to hold up. And I think that's why they're only going to win 2 games. Now, granted, there's a lot of things that go into you only winning 2 games. I think the offensive line is a big part of it, but I think the defense as well is just not going to be very good. And so I don't think it's going to be at the fault of Matthew Stafford as to why they are 2-14. I think he'll play well this season, but the big parts of the things that you need for a team to be successful, the Lions don't have either of it. They have a bad offensive line and they have a
Yeah.
bad defense. So
And they might possibly have a bad coach.
yeah, Patricia is very. No one really knows if he's good or not because it's tough to tell. But yeah. What do you have?
Yeah. So this is my division. It's my Vikes division. I'm gonna say I was slightly biased here. I had the Vikings and Green Bay Packers both going 10-6, but I changed the Vikings to 11-5. So I mean, I probably gave them one more win, but I think they're pretty even. I don't think Green Bay is nearly as good as the 13-3 record they had last year showed. I think the Niners showed that to everybody in the NFC Championship. But at the end of the day, they went 13-3. I got to give it to them. It's hard to go 13-3. They still got Rodgers, who I don't think is anywhere near as good as he once was, but he's still decent. They got Devontae Adams, who's potentially a top 3 wide receiver. They got Aaron Jones, who had like 19 touchdowns last year. The Smith brothers might be the best pass rushing duo in the league. The Vikings have one of the best pass rushing duos in the league as well, though. So Green Bay's got a lot of talent, but they also have a lot of holes. Um, and I just think they're going to regress, and I think Minnesota's got slightly better. I think the offseason is the difference here. I think Green Bay had the worst draft in football. I think many people would
Very
agree with
bad.
me on that. They
Very
had,
bad.
I mean, at least for the immediate future. If you're saying, if they're drafting for 3 or 4 years from now, then maybe not. But like for the immediate future, when you're 13-3, you should not be drafting for 3 or 4 years from now. You should be drafting for now, especially when you have an aging quarterback. And they did nothing to address this year, and the Vikings did. Their major hole was offensive line and secondary. So what do? They draft with they got the wide receiver with the first pick, but they got O lineman and cornerback in the first 2 rounds. So they addressed that. They traded Diggs, but like I said, they filled that with Jefferson. I think and they got Ngakoue. Now Hunter, they don't know what about him, but it sounds like even if he is, going to miss a few games, it sounds like it's not going to be anything serious. So the Vikings improved this offseason. The Packers did not, and I think that's the difference. So I have the Vikings going 11-5, Green Bay going 10-6. Chicago has a very good defense, Well, Mitchell Trubisky's a
But
quarterback. That's, I
exactly.
mean, honestly. And they don't have much besides him either. Allen Robinson's good, but he's not like, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say he's not great. Allen Robinson's good. He's not like Julio or Tyreek or
No.
Devontae or anything like that, though. And I don't think the running backs are any good. Um, so I think Chicago goes 6-10. I mean, I think they went like 7-9 last year or so. So I mean, the defense is still good enough to get them some wins. Detroit, I have 5-11. I don't think Detroit's very good either, but they always find a way to win. Besides last year because Stafford was injured, but with Stafford, they always find a way to win some games that you think they never should win, and then they'll
Mhm.
also find a way to lose games that they never should lose. But as long as Stafford stays healthy, I don't see them winning less than 5. I think they'll find a way to win 5. Honestly, there's a good chance to beat the Vikings once if Stafford's healthy. As same with Chicago. And I just want to say Kenny Galladay, I think, is one of the best wide receivers in all of football. I think there's a good chance he's like the third or fourth scoring wide receiver in fantasy this year. 5 years from now, I think he might be the best wide receiver in football. I love me some Kenny Galladay, so
No,
I just
I don't
wanted to
think
throw
you're
that
too
out
far
there.
off, and I think that's pretty fair.
But I disagree on Swift and Johnson. I do and I don't. It's not necessarily against them. It's just the Lions' offense as a whole. They
Yeah.
simply cannot rush the ball, and even when they do finally run the ball, they abandon it. It just makes no sense.
Yeah.
This has got to be the worst rushing team in the league almost every year for the last decade, and it's pathetic and terrible. So I will never draft a running back on fantasy. That's a Lion. I won't do it. And I don't expect the run game to be very good this year either. But I do think with Stafford they'll find a way to squeak out 5 wins because Stafford's pretty good.
So that's our predictions. So now we can move into our playoff predictions now that we have that going on here. So, Mr. Duckett, we will start in the AFC. Who do you have, I guess, as far as seeding goes, and who do you have playing who in the first round?
So my 1 seed, which is the only bye this year, is Kansas City, who you have as well at 14-2. My 2 seed is Baltimore. My 3 is Tennessee. My 4 is New England because they won the division. My 5 is Denver, 6 Houston, and 7 Pittsburgh. Now let's look here. Yes, I had Denver, Houston, and Pittsburgh all tied at 10-6 for the wild cards. But with tiebreakers, I have Denver getting 5, Houston getting 6, Pittsburgh getting 7. Cleveland would be the first team out at 9-7.
So I also have the Chiefs as my number 1 seed. I have the Titans number 2, Ravens number 3, and Bills number 4. And then I have the Colts as the 5 seed playing the Bills, Steelers as the 6 seed playing the Ravens, and then I have the Browns as the 7 seed playing the Titans. I had the Browns, Broncos, and let me see here.
Texans, I believe.
Yep, I had Browns. Yep, Browns, Broncos, and Texans all finishing at 8-8. And so I actually had to go to their conference record, and the Browns had the best one, so they were there. And I think Denver, I think, was like the last second team out. So yeah, so that's who I have them playing. I guess now we can go over to the NFC and do the same thing. I can start this time if you want.
Yeah.
So I have the Saints as the 1 seed. I have Seattle as the 2 seed. Eagles as the 3 seed. Packers as the 4 seed. And then I have the 49ers as the 5 seed playing the Packers. Tampa as the 6 seed playing the Eagles. And Dallas as the 7 seed playing Seattle. The Vikings 10-6 was really good, but not good enough to make the playoffs. I didn't even plan it that way. I literally went through every single game for every team and did a win-loss for that, and that's how the Vikings finished for me.
I mean, if you have them 10-6, then fine. It just so happened that I missed the division, or the playoffs. If you said they missed the playoffs at like 8-8, then I'd have to come in your room and slap you.
What was your seeding looking like for you?
I got Tampa Bay at number 1. I got Seattle, as you do, at number 2, who I do think is the second best team in the NFC. I have the Skull Minnesota Vikings at 3. I got, who's my 4? Oh yeah, Dallas. Dallas, the division winner at 4. My 5 is New Orleans, 6 is Green Bay, and 7 is the Rams. But I have San Francisco missing the playoffs.
Okay. Okay. So now I guess we can just go into a game by game breakdown here. So obviously, I have the Chiefs as the bye in the AFC. You have Tampa as the bye in the NFC, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So for me, the Titans, number 2 Titans, will be playing the Cleveland Browns. I think the Titans are going to win this one. I don't think it'll be a close game.
That would be an
Um,
easy win.
well, I certainly have the Titans moving on and winning that game. So who do you have in your first one?
My 2 versus 7 would be Baltimore, or it would be Pittsburgh at Baltimore. So it turns out the way my seedings end up, I have like all divisional matchups in the first round. I have
Hmm.
Rams, Seahawks, Packers, almost. I have Rams, Seahawks, Packers, Vikings, Texans, Titans, Steelers, Baltimore. So I mean that would make for some very intriguing playoff matchups. So my 7 it's Pittsburgh, and I have them at Baltimore. And I was this close to picking them to beat Baltimore, but I think I'd get heckled if I had Baltimore losing in the first round again after winning 13 wins. And I think I'll have them pull it out. So I'll have Baltimore over Pittsburgh.
So I have the number 3 Ravens going up against the number 6 Steelers. So the same matchup as you, just different seedings. Um, I actually do have Pittsburgh winning this. Lamar Jackson has
Makes
done
you feel a little
nothing for
better. I
me.
could totally see it.
Lamar Jackson has done absolutely nothing for me in the playoffs. He got absolutely embarrassed his first time there, could not hang on to the ball against the Chargers, and then got absolutely ruined by the Titans last season. So, yeah, I did have the Ravens winning. Let's see how many games I have. 12 wins, 12 and 4. I just think the Steelers are going to be, we saw last season when Lamar Jackson had to throw the ball in the playoffs, it did not end well for him. And that's kind of why they lost the game. I think Pittsburgh has an absolutely amazing defense, and they're going to make Lamar Jackson throw the ball.
And they have a very good defensive line. And yeah, sure, maybe Jackson can, escape from him. But
Yep.
I mean, if you get him running, I don't care who you are. You don't want to have to run as a quarterback.
No.
So
But I have Pittsburgh winning and then have them going up against Kansas City.
I could totally see that. Plus, that's a divisional matchup. There's divisional upsets all the time.
And then, so then who, 5 seed for the AFC? Who do
I
you
have
have there?
Denver at New England. I think Denver is the better team, but being playoffs, Belichick's gonna, you know, I'm giving this one to Belichick essentially. I think Denver's the better team, but the playoffs, Drew Lock's a young guy. Belichick's been here time after time. It's in New England. That might not matter with the whole. I mean, who knows if there's going to be fans, whatnot. Weather might have an impact though. So I'm sure home field will matter a little bit regardless. But I'm pretty much giving this one to Belichick. I'm saying New England slightly. If Drew Lock were a little more experienced, then maybe Denver. But
So I have the number 4 Bills going up against the number 5 Colts. This
ooh.
one I feel is a toss-up. I think
I don't think Sorry to interrupt, but I don't think the Colts will be good. But if they are good, it probably means Philip Rivers is having a decent year. And if it were Colts Bills in the playoffs, I think that would be a pretty good matchup.
I think it would. I think it'll be a fun one to watch because I think either one would have a chance to win. But I think the Colts are going to pull this one out as a number 5 seed. So they would go on then to play the Tennessee Titans in the conference semifinal game. So now we can move on to the NFC and go on to those first round matchups. So I guess I'll just start with mine. I have number 2 Seattle against number 7 Dallas. This one I went back and forth on. I had Dallas initially winning, but at the end of the day, I think just see with how good Russell Wilson is and how good of a coach Pete Carroll is. Not to take stuff away from Mike McCarthy. McCarthy has won a Super Bowl. It was a long time ago, but he has won a Super Bowl. So you got to give that to him. But at the end of the day, I had Seattle winning, beating Dallas. I think that could come down potentially to the last possession. I think that'll be a really good game if that were to happen.
Every Seattle game does.
Yeah, well, that's true. But I have Seattle winning as the 2 seed beating the 7.
I have Seattle as my 2 seed as well, and I have them playing the Rams. Like I said, another divisional matchup. Um, I think, especially the division matchup, I could see the Rams winning, but I think Seattle's the better team. Um, Russell Wilson's, I don't know the stats, but I'm willing to bet he's won more playoff games than any quarterback in the NFL right now besides Brady, um, including Aaron Rodgers, Andrew Brees. So I'm going to take the experience, and I think Seattle's a better team, and I'm going to take Seattle.
And then the number 3 versus the number 6 matchup. My number 3 was the Eagles going up against Tampa, number 6. I think this is where the Eagles' run ends. I'm going to give Tampa the win. I'm going to have them beating Philadelphia in Philadelphia. And so then Tampa, I have them going on and facing the Saints.
Tampa Bay beating Philly in the playoffs. I don't know if anything non-Viking related would make me more happy than that.
So who is your 3-6?
I have Minnesota versus Green Bay.
That'll be man.
And once again, I could totally see Green Bay winning because in the Kirk Cousins era, it's not his fault. But we have not beat Green Bay. We're 0-3-1. There's a very good chance Green Bay would beat us. But I'm probably a little biased with this pick. I try not to be biased, and I truly don't think I am very often. But with the Vikings winning the Vikings and Packers, I think, are so close this year. I'm probably being slightly biased in this game and the division. But I'll give it to Minnesota. It's a home game. The Packers' rush defense is terrible, and if the Vikings are good this year, it will be because of their run game and Dalvin Cook. And so I'm just kind of assuming it's going to be at least somewhat decent, and I think Cook will be able to run past Green Bay, and I'll give Minnesota the very slight edge.
I think that would be a really fun game to watch. Obviously, two of the biggest rivals in football going up against each other in the playoffs on one of the biggest stages. I think that would be a fun game. And then the 4 and 5 seeds, I have the Packers as the number 4 going up against the 49ers, number 5. Obviously, they both faced each other last season. The winner to go to the Super Bowl, the 49ers absolutely dismantled the Packers. It was not even a close game.
In the regular season, too.
And in the regular season. However, this time I have Green Bay winning. I think the 49ers will make the playoffs. I had them at 12-4. I think they'll be a solid regular season team, but I don't think they're going to get out of the first round. I have Green Bay beating them. I could see that being a close game, but remember, a huge reason why the 49ers won was because of the run, because of the rush. I don't think the rush is going to be that great. I don't think it's going to be as good as it was last season, at least in the playoffs. But I do have Green Bay coming out on top there.
Yeah, Garoppolo barely had to pass the ball that game.
Right.
I mean, he really didn't have to.
So, conference semifinals.
We didn't do my 4 or 5.
Yep.
I have Dallas as my 4 versus New Orleans as the 5. That would be a very intriguing game, I think. I do think both these teams are very good. Possibly the best. I'd say both for sure top 5 offenses. I'd say probably New Orleans, Dallas, Tampa, Kansas City, and maybe Baltimore. So I think 2 top 5 offenses, and I do think New Orleans gets the win though. New Orleans, I thought Dallas was like one of the best teams in the league last year, entering like week 3 or 4, and then New Orleans without Drew Brees beat them. So New Orleans clearly found out how to beat them last year. I think New Orleans is probably slightly a better team, and even though they're in Dallas, I think they'll get the win. But I think that would be a very good and very close game. But I'll go New Orleans over Dallas.
So now we have the conference semifinals. We'll start with the AFC. Who was your matchups for that?
I have the 1 Kansas City versus the 4 New England. I honestly don't think it'll really be close. I have Kansas City beating them. Then I have Tennessee at Baltimore, a rematch. And once again, I have Tennessee winning. I just think Derrick Henry will be able to run it down their throats again. And unless Baltimore can force some turnovers out of Tannehill, which is going to be hard because unless they stop Henry, he's not going to have to throw it much. I think Tennessee is going to win. They obviously found out how to stop Jackson last year, and if they do that same thing, I think they'll beat him. Now it's on Harbaugh, who I do think is a very, very good coach. If he can figure out, what went wrong last year and fix that, then Baltimore can get the win. But as of now, I'm going with Tennessee over Baltimore.
Yeah, the thing with Derrick Henry that's really intriguing is that you almost know what play he's going to run, right? It's that halfback guy right up the middle, like that Madden play that you see all the time. But,
Yep.
like, it works. It gets the job every single time. Like, you know what's coming, and you still can't stop it.
Especially late in the game because he just beats you down, and by
Yeah.
that time you're like, all right, dude, I've had enough of this. And Derrick Henry's like, well, I haven't, and he just keeps coming. And this
So
guy's been better in. This guy's great at the end of the year and in the playoffs. So
I have the Chiefs, number one Chiefs, going up against the number 6 Steelers. I have the Chiefs winning this game. I think it has potential to be close.
it could be
Again,
a good game.
with how good that Pittsburgh defense is, I could see Pittsburgh maybe pulling it off. I don't think they will. I think the Chiefs are the offense is going to be too good, and I think they're going to win the game.
That could be a good game. However, if there's one quarterback I trust against that Pittsburgh D line, it's Mahomes.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I have the Titans going up against the Colts. I think the Colts Cinderella season is going to come to an end here. I think the Titans are going to beat them again. Division game. I could be a close game. The Colts might be able to pull it out, but I think the Titans are going to win it.
I will say this: Indianapolis has only lost to the Colts, or Indianapolis has only lost to the Titans like one time in the last 6 years.
Yeah.
But Andrew Luck was quarterback in most of those games, and Tennessee also wasn't as good. So, but Indianapolis does have Tennessee's number. So,
Well, I also have Chiefs and Titans in the AFC title game.
as it was last year.
Yep. So now we have the NFC conference semifinals here. So I have number 1 Saints going up against number 6 Tampa. I think the Saints are going to be on a mission. I think they're going to be the better team, and I think they're going to win. I have New Orleans beating Tampa, going to the conference finals. And then in the other side, I have the number 2 Seattle against number 4 Green Bay. Again, I think it'll be another close game, but I do think Seattle is going to come out on top. I think they're going to end up winning this game.
That would be a rematch from last year as well.
Yep. So I have number 1 New Orleans going up against number 2 Seattle in the conference finals NFC.
The 2 matchups I have, I love them. If my matchups come true, it's going to be an exciting playoffs, man. I got New Orleans at Tampa, yet again another divisional game, and then Minnesota at Seattle. And Minnesota plays Seattle every single year in Seattle too. As the Viking fan of me does not like that matchup, but that should be a good matchup. So New Orleans at Tampa Bay, the 5 at the 1. I'm picking Tampa. I think Tampa's going to be the best team in the NFC this year. I think that offense is going to be real good. The only question mark, they get 2 question marks. They got 1 big question mark. The big question mark is the secondary, which I don't think is going to be very good. But if they can just be middle of the pack, I think this team is going to be very, very, very hard to beat. They should shoot to be a middle of the pack secondary. And then if the O-line is just decent enough to give Brady some time to throw, it's not like he's going to need a super long time to throw. The dude's great at just getting that 5-yard pass for the first down, and Godwin and Evans are the best duo in the league, so they'll get open. They'll create separation. So the offensive line just has to be decent enough, and the secondary shoot for middle of the pack. And if they can get there, which I think they got a shot, I think they're going to be very hard to beat. So I got Tampa over New Orleans, and then Seattle never loses to the Vikings with Russell Wilson. It's always, 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 always a close game, a very good game, but Seattle always wins. And Russell Wilson, I'm not picking against that dude against the Vikings, so I got Seattle over the Vikings, unfortunately.
Which I think that could be a good game. But I have now the conference finals here. I have the Chiefs going up against the Titans. I think it's going to be the same story as last year. I think the Chiefs are going to win. They might be competitive again, but this Chiefs team is just so dang good. I don't see them losing. I think there's only barely a handful of teams that could potentially beat them. But I do have the Chiefs beating the Titans in the AFC. And, yeah.
I'd love to see Tennessee beat them. I don't mind Kansas City. I like Mahomes. But I would love to see Tennessee beat them. And I actually picked them coming into that championship game last year. But, they were up, 20 or 14, and it didn't go well. I just don't see it happening. So I have Kansas City as well.
And then NFC, I have number 1 New Orleans against number 2 Seattle. This would be a really fun game to watch, really intriguing game. but at the end of the day, I'm going to give the edge to the Saints. I think the Saints, after the way that they have lost in the playoffs these last few years, they are due for a good playoff run. And I think this is the year that they do it. It's not going to be an easy game against Seattle. I think it could be a really sloppy game, actually, on both sides of the ball. But I do think New Orleans will come out on top here and get the win.
I really hope you're wrong. I have Seattle at Tampa, which once again, I think would be a very good game. But I think Tampa squeezes it out. Seattle has got they got a very good rush game, but they also got Russell Wilson and Metcalf and Lockett that I think could potentially win with that Tampa Bay secondary. But I'm going to give Tampa the edge. As long as they don't turn the ball over in this game, I think they'd win. I'll have Tampa over Seattle.
So now we have the Super Bowl. I have the Chiefs going up against the Saints. So both of my number one seeds both made it there.
As did mine.
And man, I'm going with the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs will win. But man, that would be a fun game to watch. Potentially Drew Brees' last game ever, playing in the Super Bowl. You know he's going to leave it all out on the table. Honestly, I think this can be a really high-scoring game. But I think at the end of the day, it kind of comes down to the offense. And the Saints have an electric offense, but I think the Chiefs have an even better one. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs winning that one and being back-to-back Super Bowl champs.
You got a score?
I did not have a score, no. But I will think of one.
All right. I have Kansas City as well versus Tampa Bay. And you know what that means, Dorton?
What's that?
First ever home Super Bowl, baby.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So I think Kansas City is really, really good. They should start off number one in power rankings. They should be favored in every game. But it's really hard to go back to back. And you know who they're playing against. My boy, TB12, Thomas Patrick, the GOAT Brady. And I'm picking Tampa.
Oh my god, that ain't gonna happen. That ain't gonna happen.
And also get Nick Duck at $450 in the process. So, Tampa Bay wins with a late field goal, 26-24. TB12 wins Super Bowl MVP. Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady have a very good embrace. TB12 says, "Nice job. You're gonna win like 5 of these one day, but I'm gonna take number 7 home with me right now."
Oh, okay. I don't think they would. I don't think they would win that. I think the Chiefs would definitely win. But
I think the Chiefs would be the favorite, and I do think the Chiefs are the better team. But I'm taking Tampa in the Super Bowl, baby.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
And Andy Reid and Bruce Arians, aren't they like really good buddies? That would be kind of cool.
I'm not sure. So I have so my final score prediction. I'm gonna have the Chiefs 40, Saints 33.
Ooh, that would be epic.
So I think it'll be a fun game. So now we finish out the show making some award predictions as well too.
You got Super Bowl MVP, Drew Brees.
Well, I have the Chiefs winning.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It'll probably be Mahomes.
The quarterback. Right?
Edward Hilaire will probably be the better player in the game, like Damian Williams was, but they're gonna give it to Mahomes.
Right.
So now, we can make some predictions. So we're gonna do predictions for MVP, Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year, Offensive and Defensive Player of the Year, and then Coach of the Year. So make it pretty simple there. So I guess why don't we start from the bottom and Coach of the Year work our way up to MVP. So who do you have for your Coach of the Year for this season?
I have Vic Fangio. Typically it goes to that team who makes the playoffs, who hasn't in a while or isn't expected to. I have Denver going 10-6. I think they're going to be a very good squad, and I have Vic Fangio getting Coach of the Year.
I have Frank Reich from the Indianapolis Colts. I think if they are that dark horse team that some people think they might be, including myself, I think he'll be the front runner for that. So I'd have to give it to Frank Reich, especially after only now it'll be 2 seasons removed from Andrew Luck retiring and they're back in the playoffs. So I have
By the way, if Andrew Luck were still there, I think the Colts would be like the fourth best team in football.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
Do you think he'll ever come back?
defense.
You think he'll ever
What's
come back?
that?
You think he'll ever come back?
I don't think so.
I don't either.
Unfortunate, but I don't think he will. Defensive player of the year. Who'd you have for that?
I have Danielle Hunter, but it's kind of pending. I don't know if he's healthy. Like, if he misses 2 or 3 games, then no. I'm not really sure how banged up he is. But let's just say he starts week 1 and he is healthy or almost 100%. I have Danielle Hunter. If not, I am saying Chandler Jones. I think the Cardinals are finally. It should not matter. The people who vote for this, it should not matter. But the Cardinals have been bad, so I feel like Jones gets disrespected. But I think they're actually going to be decent this year. And I think Chandler Jones is finally going to get the credit he deserves as the best D end in football. And he would be my second choice.
I like that too. I agree. I don't think they should take record into consideration for those awards. I think if you were just the
And
best
I'm
player,
not
you were the
saying
best
they
player.
do, but like
Well, you know it's a decent factor. I mean, that's for
it's
sure.
it's just like the fact that he plays for the team of the Arizona Cardinals that just are quite frankly one of the least popular teams in football. And it's like I just wish the guy would get some respect for once.
Offensive player of the year. Who'd you have?
So the fantasy football MVP this year, Kyler Murray.
Okay. So offensive and defensive player of the year, both coming out of Arizona.
Yes.
Um,
I mean, unless
I
Hunter's healthy, I got.
right.
Yeah,
I have
I think
Christian.
Kyler Murray is. Sorry to interrupt. I think Kyler Murray. I know this is not a fantasy show, but for fantasy, I think Kyler Murray is going to be almost last year's Lamar Jackson. I think the dude is going to be really good. I am a really big believer in Kyler Murray, and although Arizona I only have at 8-8, I think he's going to have enough numbers to go offensive player of the year.
I have Christian McCaffrey being offensive player of the
Yeah.
year. I think that's a fairly safe pick. I mean, as much as this guy does on offense, I think you certainly got to give it to
Did
him.
he get it last year? I'm
I
guessing.
can't remember. I don't remember who
Either
got it
him or
last.
Thomas, I would assume.
Yeah, it was one or the other. Defensive rookie of the year. Who'd you have?
Rookie of the years, I kind of just took the obvious choice. I took Chase Young. It typically goes to D end, and he's about the only real legit D end for rookies up there. I mean, I think Epinesa has an outside chance. I think he's actually like fourth in odds. I could see Isaiah Simmons, Caleb's boy, getting it, which would be another Cardinal. But I'll go with Chase Young,
I'm going to
who
go
is
with
probably
Isaiah
going to be the only bright spot on that Washington football team.
with Dwayne Haskins, too.
Yeah, no.
Okay. I got Isaiah Simmons winning that award. Again, Caleb's boy, Swiss Army knife out there. This guy can do pretty much everything. Going to have a huge factor on that defense, and I think he's going to be winning that award, Defensive Rookie of the Year. So who did you have for Offensive Rookie of the Year?
Again, I kind of took the obvious choice. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. The dude's getting taken first round in fantasy. The dude's gonna be used a lot. Probably the best offense in football. Probably the best team in football. We both have them in the Super Bowl. You have them winning the Super Bowl. He's gonna be their He's gonna be their Week 1 starter, and the dude's obviously good, and he won a championship at LSU. So I got Helaire.
I also have Clyde Edwards-Helaire winning as well, too, for all the same reasons. But let me say, an outside chance. Watch Cam Akers this season. I think he has potential to be a really solid
I
running
like
back.
that. Yeah.
Although I have the Rams only finishing 8-8, I think he's going to be a huge bright spot in that offense, and I'm interested to see how he does this season. But I have Edwards-Helaire winning.
I'm pretty confident Helaire will win, but I suppose my outside chances. I'm kind of in agreement on the Akers. I probably sound like a homer here, but Justin Jefferson I think has a shot. It's not even that I think he's the best wide receiver in the draft. I just think he's going to get the best opportunity of all of those guys. Well, him and Henry Ruggs, but I think the Raiders are going to suck. And then Mixon or not Mixon. Burrow, being a quarterback, is obviously going to have a decent shot, and I do think he's going to be decent, so he could potentially get it. But I think it's going to be Clyde.
And then most valuable player, who did you have? MVP?
Same as I picked last year. Probably the best player in the NFL, or at least most important for sure. Patrick Mahomes. Didn't really go out on a limb on my rookie of the year's MVP.
So I actually did go a little different. I actually had Russell Wilson winning MVP.
And I would love that. He never won one, and he's definitely MVP caliber. Could argue he probably should have one or two. I'd love it if he won one. I really would love that.
Certainly think Mahomes will win, but I think Russell Wilson will win for sure. I'm gonna give it to Russell Wilson.
I hope
Probably
you're
been
right.
probably has been the most valuable player to his team probably his entire career. If Russell Wilson is not on the Seattle Seahawks, they are a bad football team, and that's pretty easy to see there.
Him and
Um,
Watson are kind of the same, but Wilson's better.
yeah, but I think Wilson's gonna have the stats. They're gonna have to give it to him.
Yeah.
So that is that. Fun episode.
Suppose should we predict Thursday night's game?
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Pick that up again. Do our standings from last season. I forgot about that.
Whichever team I pick is gonna lose, right?
So we'll have to here. Let me just let me go into the week 1 matchups, I suppose, and we can NFL schedule here. I did not even think about that. I couldn't tell you who won.
That's what I'm here for, Dorton. What I'm here for.
Yep, that is what you're here for. That's why we keep you around.
And just for that good looking face.
Yeah, whatever helps you sleep at night.
That's a lot of padding.
Okay, so all right, so Houston and Kansas City. Who do you have winning that one?
Well, we both have them in the Super Bowl. They're a 9.5-point favorite. I'm gonna take Kansas City.
I'm also gonna go Kansas City. And now we have New York Jets. New York Jets at Buffalo. Who do you have this one?
No, even though I reminded us about this, I haven't even necessarily done it yet. So this will be the confirmed one, but maybe at the end of the week I'll change my mind. But as of now, I'm going. Where's that game at?
In Buffalo.
See, I think the Jets 7-9 and Buffalo 6-10, but we'll give this one to Buffalo.
I'm gonna go with Buffalo as well too. Okay, so now we got Green Bay at Minnesota.
I'm not that confident, but I think Minnesota's gonna. I do think we're gonna win. I do think Minnesota's gonna win.
I'm gonna give the win to Green Bay. I think they take it week 1. So now we have Philadelphia at Washington.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think I actually did have Washington winning week 1. Now that I think about that, I don't know if I'm too confident in that pick. But I'm gonna stay consistent. I'm gonna pick Washington. I'll pick Washington. I'll pick the upset. And
you did say, you have Philly at 12-4, but you did say you had them losing to Washington once, so.
Yeah. So I will pick Washington in this one. Now we've got Cleveland at Baltimore.
I mean, I'm not saying. I mean, there could be an upset, but I'll go Baltimore.
I'm also gonna pick Baltimore for that one. Now we have Indianapolis at Jacksonville.
Honestly, I think if Jacksonville wins a game, this is one of them they can win.
Mm.
But I'm gonna pick Indianapolis.
Yeah, I wrote down an X for you for Indianapolis before I even started talking. So now we have the Las Vegas Raiders against Carolina.
If there's one game your Carolina Panthers will win, I have them winning 4. I think this could be one of their 4. Let me go look what I wrote down earlier, and then I'll give you that one, because I'm kind of up in the air on this. Raiders.
Okay. I'm having Carolina win this one. Now we have...
McCaffrey's going to go off, though. He's going to get a lot of fantasy points.
We have Chicago at Detroit. I'm going to give the edge to Chicago for me.
So I gotta go look at this one again too. I did pick this one earlier, but I don't even remember because this one I'm really tight on too. Actually, never mind. I guess I didn't do that one. I'm gonna give Detroit the week 1 win. They started off strong last year and then lost about every game after week 3.
Okay.
I'm gonna give them this one.
Now we had Seattle at Atlanta.
Seattle. I think Atlanta's gonna score a lot of points, but I think Seattle's gonna win.
I think so too. We have Miami at New England.
New England, I think, will win week 1.
Yeah, I think Miami's going to win.
I wouldn't mind seeing that, but actually, turns out in this book I had Miami winning, but no. Stick with New England. Stick with New England. Yeah.
All right. Chargers at Bengals.
I'm not very high on the Chargers, but I think they'll win this one.
Okay. I think I will also go with the Chargers for this one too. Now we have Arizona at 49ers.
This is my big upset. San Fran's favored by 7, but I'm going to pick Arizona.
I'm going to go with the 49ers in this one. And then we have Tampa Bay at New Orleans.
Tampa Bay.
I'm going to go with New Orleans on this one.
What a game, week 1, huh?
Then we have Dallas at LA Rams. I'm going to go with Dallas.
I'm going to lean in Dallas. Yeah, I'm going to go Dallas too.
All right, and then
I'm pretty excited week 1, man. I got Vikings, Packers, then it's going to be Bucks, Saints, then Cowboys, Rams. I like it. I like that slate.
Now we got Pittsburgh against the Giants. Who do you have in this one?
Pittsburgh's going to clobber them.
Yeah, I do too. I don't even think it's going to be a close game. And then we got Tennessee versus Denver.
I really like this game. I think Tennessee's really good. I got Denver going 10-6. I'm going to pick... I think Tennessee's the better team, but I'm going to pick Denver week 1.
I'm going to go with Tennessee. I think they're going to get the dub here. So that is now the episode. So now we will actually have an entire season of point standings to see how we do, not just like the second half of the year. So hopefully that goes well for us. Again, Nick, do you have any other final questions, comments, concerns that you would like to bring up?
Not really. I'm just really excited for the NFL season. I hope it all goes well. Obviously, a lot of things are up in the air with the COVID and whatnot. But,
Yeah.
The NFL is so big. I don't see it ending. It's probably going to be affected in some way, one or another, with players being out and whatnot. But I'm just really looking forward to it. Looking forward to the Vikings season. Like I always think they'll be pretty good. I think your Dolphins got a shot at the playoffs. I do think it's fairly top heavy with like Tampa, New Orleans, Kansas City, Baltimore, but Seattle. But I could see a lot of teams winning it all this year, and I just think I'm really excited. I think week 1's got a lot of good looking games. Let's get to it. Do it.
So thank you folks for listening to episode 33 of the Dorton Duck Debate Podcast NFL episode. We had a ton of fun doing it. Certainly let us know your predictions, standings, awards, playoffs, and such. We'd certainly love to hear it. It's always a fun time to be able to hear other people's predictions and standings for sure. So definitely do that. If you would like to be on upcoming episodes, certainly do that as well too. Let us know. We'd love to have you on. Always like having new people on here for sure. And then if you would like to follow us on social media, you can follow our Twitters, myself at Lucas_Dorton, capital L, capital D. If you want to follow Nick on Twitter, it is at Doetkott or Doetkott, whatever's easier for you there. And if you want to follow our Twitter page, at DND_podcast, capital T's, capital P for that. So, like I mentioned, certainly share this with your friends, family. Give us a like, let us know how we did, because we are always interested in getting better. So, thank you, folks, for listening to episode 33. And as for Nick and myself, until next time, we are out.